Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Karen Brammer. I am so grateful that Bob is playing jazz this morning because I understand jazz. Jazz is communication between musicians. It's a soulful connection that isn't determined ahead of time. It's just you got to be really present. And I'm really dopey today. And as soon as he started playing jazz, a part of me woke up. And I'm so grateful, Bob. They're probably grateful too, that I am a little more awake because Bob is playing with a jazz soul. And there are lots of things up here that are more likely to confuse me, but I'm going to stop and just say welcome. Welcome, welcome. Whether you're visiting for the first time or have been a member here for many, many years, we welcome you. You are so welcome. Whatever faith you have known, if any, you are welcome. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome. We're invited to bring our whole selves, even the dopey, sleepy part of ourselves, to this worship service. Our doubts are welcome here, as well as our convictions, our pain, as well as our joy. All is welcome. Our longing for connection and our understanding, every part of us is welcome here today. If you're visiting for the first time, please feel welcome to ask anyone wearing a name tag. If you have questions or need anything, we're glad you're here this morning. There's also another special name tag that some people are wearing that is about being able to tell stories about our past as Unitarian Universalist Church. This church and the last 3 churches that our ancestors inhabited. And so I hope those of you who have stories to tell will wear one of these, and those of you who would like to hear some of the stories will notice and ask for a story. All right, I'm going to hand this to Malcolm. Who has stories? All right. We now open our hearts and our minds to this space. We open our hearts and our minds to one another. We open our minds to the ancestors, the people who walked this land millennia ago, especially the Oneida and the Mohawk, whose ancestral lands we inhabit now. May our lives be enriched by our time together today. I will then now invite Jeff to come forward to tell us what announcements we have this morning.
Good morning. We will not be here next Sunday. Don't come. Come to Little Falls. It's the cluster service in Little Falls with combined choirs and Reverend Richard Gilbert, who is no stranger here. That is at the same time, 10:30. It's in Little Falls. We used to carpool from the parking lot. I don't know if we still do that. Ken will do it. So if you need a ride or if you want to offer a ride from the parking lot, you can see me or more appropriately, Ken. Raise your hand, Ken. Yes, I'll call on Ken. Okay. So don't come here. The church will not be open. Okay. Go to Little Falls. It'll be fun. And there'll be a lunch after the service. Okay, this Saturday, it's game night, 6 p.m., family fun, pizza, and more, it says. If you want to know what's more, you got to come. This Saturday, 6 p.m. The last... We bring, yeah, we can, and they'll have the main courses. We can bring salads and desserts, should we choose to do that. There are full details in the newsletter, too. All right. Thank you, Nancy. The last Tuesday lunch bunch is not this Tuesday. It's the last Tuesday, Halloween, October 31. The reason I'm mentioning it is because we won't be here next Sunday, okay? And you have to call Lisa Ostrander. Those details are in the newsletter, the last Tuesday lunch bunch. The neurodiversity group meets today after the coffee hour. And if anyone is feeling left out because you don't have a permanent laminated name tag, you can see me and we will take care of that.
I've asked Kai to come forward and light our chalice this morning. We as Unitarian Universalists in Utica are here because ancestors from hundreds of years back chose to claim their beliefs. They chose to belong to one another. They chose to work positively to influence their surrounding culture and to work at building something for those of us to follow years and years later. We're here as a link in that long necklace of bringing greater love to life in our community. May it be so. And I'll ask you to turn to page 436 if you're willing and able. 436. That's in the gray hymnal. And if you're not able to do that, enjoy listening to those of us who can participate in this. If you're able to rise, please do that as well. Please rise in body or spirit. And I'll begin. This is by Reverend David Pohl. I will begin and I'll ask you to read the lines that are in italics after. We come to this time and this place to renew our faith in the holiness, the goodness, and the beauty of life. To rekindle the flame of memory and hope. And, please. Thank you. Please be seated. Oh, I'm wrong. Stay tuned. If you think I might be wrong, you're probably correct, and you should just stand anyway. Remain standing if you are, or seated if you prefer. 360 is the hymn we're going to sing together.
Can I hear the hymn, Julie?
Thank you for your sense of humor this morning.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matter small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song.
Now, please be seated. And on our next hymn, Bob, which isn't right now but later, I'm going to ask you to play the first time through with heightened jazz, because I kept hearing this hymn played as jazz, and I thought, okay, we can do that. We can update our hymns to become more of a conversation between us of our souls. Don't get scared, it's okay. We'll go back to the easier way, but I want to hear it. We are in a place right now where we are going to honor those who have been members of this congregation, part of that link, part of that longer story, part of the story that connects the 1800s to maybe 2030, 2040, 2050, the year 3000. Who knows? Who knows? We are honoring those who have been among us for a year now, a full year. And I know that Matt is here, probably working with the children, probably helping someone. Hey, Matthew Cavalieri, who's also on the board. Yeah, he's in with our children. Matthew is going to make his way forward, and we will recognize him. And Kimball, where are you, Kimball? There, please come forward. So Matthew is 1 year, Kimball is 10 years, and Leah, who is not with us today, is 10 years. And I'm going to just ask Nancy to honor these members with a handshake and a pewter pin and a mug. So Matthew is getting the Hardy mug, which he will fill with coffee immediately. Yay, Matthew. And Kimball and Mo could sit in that mug. And Kimball and Leah, who have been members for 10 years, who are receiving pewter pins. And there you go. And a photo op is always noticed by Jerry, our newsletter. I will thank you for coming forward and Nancy for being part of this. Elise Harris is not here with us today. She has been a member of this congregation for 25 years. And I just learned that she is currently the district governor of the Rotary. It's very, very active and currently caring for her husband who has had a stroke and is in special care, I believe, in Boston. Rehab. Awesome. So hopefully we will be able to connect in a new way. But all of these members are part of what connects our history from the 1800s, from the 1700s, with what will follow. What will we leave our children and the children's children and the children's children's children? Our members are so important, and so it's such an honor to acknowledge and thank our members. For Together Time, we talk a little bit more about ancestors, and what I'm gonna, I think, I don't know who's back there. Is that Asher at the table? I have something written on my hands, and I wonder if you can read from there. If I come closer? One hand is an ancestor and ancestors who were Quaker. And on my other hand are many ancestors who were and currently are soldiers. How's that? Quakers who are peace activists, witnessing for peace, helping people to have conscientious objector status so that they do not have to go against their faith and be actively engaging with weapons. And soldiers who have served for centuries in my family. And here I am. Here I am. And so I'm going to invite everybody to think about if you were to write an ancestor on your hand, not a name necessarily, but something about that ancestor, what would you write? And how is that connected to who you are? Okay? And then just turn to somebody and talk about that. Just think about somebody who's an ancestor in your life. Now, I know that some of our ancestors are people, I have ancestors who would not approve of me, who would have really, really not approved of who I am. And I have ancestors I have chosen because they have mentored me and guided me into my full presence. And so whether your ancestor is through your bloodline, through birth, or whether your ancestor is chosen, think about who you would write on your hand and just turn to someone and talk about that for just a couple minutes. Okay? Do that now. Do that now. Think about, and you can turn to somebody you don't know. That would be even better. So finish what you're saying. I know it's hard. Finish what you're saying, and there will be coffee hour where you can pick up the conversation again. So try to finish what you're saying. Come back into your seat. Welcome back to your seat. Welcome back to your moment where we are right now. And I was reminded that along with ancestry and our awareness of time passing and who we value, we're going to take this moment now to sing happy birthday to Kay Burgess. Ready?
So we have to do this with a jazz flavor. With jazz. So, and we have to pick a key. All right. And, so work with us. Okay. Go ahead.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kay. Happy birthday to you.
We're glad you were born, Kay. One of the simplest statements about our Unitarian Universalist faith is that we are the faith of open minds, open heart, and open hands. Open mind, open heart, open hands. There is so much to love about Unitarian Universalism, that we don't have to think the same, but that we belong to one another through a covenant to treat one another and the world well. I love this faith tradition. I love that we come together to be present to one another, to learn and teach and care for one another through our differences. And the longer I'm Unitarian Universalist, the more I learn about how we have not been able to live up to what we say we believe. Any one of us, as individual human beings, have beliefs and values and goals that every day we're not able to live up to. But it's so helpful and wise to be honest about that. I just read yesterday a quote from Mark Nepo. All courage is a threshold crossing, meaning from one thing to another. You cross from one thing to another with courage. Often there's a choice in that crossing to enter a burning building or not, to speak truth or not, to stand before oneself without illusion or not. And for us as community, to stand before ourselves as community without illusion or not. I think conversations about our ancestors take some amount of courage because of the last point that Mark Nepo made, which is that it takes courage to stand before oneself without illusion. To look at our Unitarian Universalist faith without illusion does not take courage because over hundreds of years, it does take courage because over hundreds of years, our faith community has moved our faith towards open mind, open heart, and open hands imperfectly. And we have so much more to learn about how to continue to evolve beyond those ancestors and what they left us. We've moved beyond singular focus on Christianity, which is where we began. And we include the wisdom of all faiths, which is where we are now. And here is one place we need courage and compassion. You see, in our efforts to become inclusive, we've tended as a denomination as a whole, of the 1,000 congregations or more, have tended to be intolerant of more traditional traditions and faiths, including Christianity, from where we came. We've tended to confuse liberal religion with liberal politics. Liberal religion, like United Church of Christ, like Unitarian Universalism, is religion that acknowledges that our faith is not complete unless we are also attending and learning from science, from art, from our interactions, from our own truths. Liberal religion is not the same as religious politics, but we get that confused on a regular basis. We've tended to confuse things and tend to intensify our typical cultural tendency to polarize. And so, to bring more love and commitment into this phase of our history, I'm looking forward to all of us finding the questions we most want to ask about our history, about who the Unitarian Universalists were before us. I will tell you tiny snippets of history, and you know that there's so much more in our history that you may want to dig in and learn more. We have lots of materials out in the Coat area, and they will find a new home, but there's so much more to learn, and I can help you dive deeper if you would like. But for instance, in 1825, the first Universalist Society of Utica was formed. Now, the way I try to remember this, because you know I have difficulty with memory, tiny is the word. They did not have tiny courage. They were considered heretical. They claimed universal salvation, that being the opposite of what Christianity of the time was saying. Christianity of the time was saying, if you don't act in a particular way, if you don't believe a particular way, you are going to everlasting hell. It was a condemning kind of faith. Universalists believed in universal salvation. It was incredibly controversial and not well liked. And so this tiny group of people built a building here in 1825 that was 40 feet by 65 feet. It was very small. And just to emphasize the point, this Bible, can you even see it? This tiny little Bible, I believe, if I'm correct, Jerry, was given to children at christening. It was from 1815, this little Bible. Tiny church, heroic ideas, tiny graveside that is at the corner of Genesee and French. That is Universalist. I don't know if you knew that, but it is privately owned. We didn't keep it in the family per se. It's privately owned. And we don't know, other than what you can actually read on those headstones, and don't, by the way, wander in, you got to ask permission of the owner. But he is very curious about the history. But that congregation ended 20 years later. It was when it opened. 1825 is when the Erie Canal opened. I mean, think about the historic, how much life here was changing given the entrance of commerce through the Erie Canal. It was an immense time that our forebears were present with their heretical ideas. In 1853, the Church of the Reconciliation was a Universalist community of people who came together and created a building that is best known now. Well, it was taken down, but it was best known around the world as the tree. I mean, it's the tree. It was the building from which one of the towers, a tree grew 40 feet in the air. So we had a building, our Universalists had a building from which a tree grew many stories above. And they too were heretical in their beliefs. And given the size of the building, I have to believe that the people who were responsible for that building primarily made a great deal of money off the Erie Canal, that they were wealthy people. Just think about, and they were all white men through this time. So just think about the times in which our ancestors lived, the historic things that were happening here in Utica. And we have reason to be grateful that they established themselves as believing that not just a few would be loved by God, but all. Incredibly heretical. This congregation remained open for 50 years, and there are things in this building that come from that church. For instance, there's a baptismal font that is hiding behind the piano that I would someday like a bulldozer to move forward so we can see it. It's immensely heavy. It's made out of marble. And how many of you know someone who was baptized? There. Oh, look at all the hands. Look at all the hands. Okay. That font was used primarily at a time, it was developed and built at a time when Universalists and then Unitarians understood that God was a loving God and that every child was beautiful. Every child was touched by the presence of God. And that font then baptized children into our community. Nowadays, we have moved away from baptism to dedicating a child, understanding a child is of God, is of love, is of community, and that our entire community is responsible for the upbringing of that child into the life of love. So that font came through, this is its third home, the third church. There are quite a few things in this building that come from the church that was, that had a 40-foot ash tree in it, and it was called the Church of the Reconciliation. It wasn't until 1978 that we changed the name, I believe, to the Unitarian Universalist Church. So the Church of Reconciliation were our ancestors of faith, okay? There was a fire in the church, a bad one. And that fire burned in 1903. The church was sold in 1906. Some of the things came from that church into the next church that was built on Oneida Square. Jerry tells me that there are some stained glass windows in that, still existing in that Oneida church, Oneida Square church, that came from the Church of the Reconciliation when it was way back before it was burned. So our histories, while they're not, all of us have histories, like me. I have histories of things that I'm proud of and things that are complicated and painful. It wasn't until the 1960s that we had our first woman minister in this building. There were quite a few people of color, I understand, members of this congregation in this building and in the Oneida Square building until around what was that date? It was called there's a very specific name it was given, the Black Controversy. It's 1967, when those who were in power in the Unitarian Universalist Association, including all of the members who had representatives of our churches around the country and the world, came together. We had created a fund for people of color to begin to build their understanding of what racism is and how racism was operating in a faith that grew out of Puritan Christianity, which makes sense. There would be some racism built into the system. But the white people back in 1967 couldn't separate out their not wanting or intending to be racist from a system that was racist. And we made a decision to not fund that Black organization and lost many, many Black Unitarian Universalists because we hadn't come far enough along in our understanding of how deep systemic racism goes. And yet, I choose to be in this faith because I know we have goals and values I care about, and I know it's work to get from here to there. And I'm humble enough to know that I have a lot to learn along the way, as do we all. As do we all. And so when you look around this building, be curious, because there are multiple things. There's a plate for donations from 1906. There's a stand, a lectern from 1923, I think, that have come to be present now. There's a big old picture up there that comes from the parish building, parish house, that was connected to the United Square Church, that is actually done by an artist who has 3 pieces at the Munson Museum. And so there's just, it is so easy to come in and think that we are Unitarian Universalism, which we are, but we are not disconnected. We are very connected to what our history has been and where we're going. Think about who you will become as an ancestor to the next generations of Unitarian Universalists. On the walls, the 1800s are over there. Whoops, except for the picture that I couldn't move. That picture belongs over there in the 1900s. There are things over in the 1900s that, think of the number of wars that took place in the 1900s. And then know that our Unitarian Universalist community made decisions to invite people like Daniel Berrigan, who was a Catholic very progressive peace activist, who was arrested multiple times for entering submarines, nuclear weapons. He was a big presence to raise the awareness about nuclear war and war in general. Our congregation chose to invite him to come speak. We also were part of the beginning of the Planned Parenthood that exists here in Utica. We also had a member, I don't see Lisa Ostrander here today. Lisa Ostrander's, hi Lisa, grandmother, great-grandmother, was here, became a member, I believe at Oneida Square then, who brought in UNICEF, and the congregation supported UNICEF very strongly, and the United Nations. So there are many ways in which a congregation at any point in time is in a river, a fast-moving river of cultural change. We cannot hold back that tide, but we can make choices. We learn from where we came from, we take courage from that, and we also figure out who we do not want to be based on that. We do not want all white male ministers. We know we want to increase diversity. We know that we want to continue in the path of taking down the boundaries that separate us from one another. What we've got up here too is the rainbow flag. We became a welcoming congregation. in the 70s. Oh, you know what? I don't forgotten the year of that. There's a group of people right here who were a very big part of that. So if you want to know when the Welcoming Congregation started, go talk to those folks. Our Whole Lives, a curriculum on sexuality education. Not done anywhere else, done in collaboration between Unitarian Universalists and the United Church of Christ. We have a tradition, a long tradition back into the 1800s of looking at what's happening in the culture and steering our craft in a direction to push against the current and establishing something that feels like more love. And that's what we're doing today. You'll see the 2000s on the back door. It's a very tiny little door for all that's happening in the 2000s. But you'll see a few of the things that this congregation has already done, that this congregation accepted just a couple years ago, the 8th principle that is on your order service, that talks about committing ourselves to act in order to end white supremacy. That's not something you do in a day. That's something you build on, you work, you learn, you figure out what does it mean in my individual life, in my community life, and in the larger community. But things like that have taken place in this congregation. In fact, this building was made by the congregation with no mortgage so that it would have a smaller environmental footprint with an environmental awareness. Climate change is part of the reality of this particular congregational life in a way that it wasn't in the past 4 congregations, right? So we are steering our craft together with as much love as we can muster, learning as much as we can about what's true, and making choices together that will help our beliefs become real in real time. And we have ancestors to thank for continuing to create a presence where we could come together and do that. And so, this is what happens when I don't follow my notes. Witnessing ourselves, looking in the mirror without illusion, being really honest about who we are, requires courage and compassion. And compassion is something I'm going to talk about alongside of racism, right alongside of all the social ills we need to be aware of and figuring out if there's a way, if there's the next right thing that we can do. It must be done with compassion for ourselves and for one another. And so, without illusion and with compassion, we celebrate the past. We make choices about what we want to leave with our ancestors and not bring forward, but learn from those things and become who we are meant to become. Find what is our right thing to do. May it be so for us all. The hymn on 113 was written back in the 1800s, I think. 113. Stay still for a moment. Yeah, I see. Okay, so copyright 1992. So we were in this building at that point. So this isn't as old as I thought it was. However, we're going to then challenge ourselves to hear it first as jazz, because we're open to evolution, and then we're going to sing it the way it's written. Sorry, Bob. Okay, Bob, bring us into the... Yeah, if you want to rise and wiggle a little bit, move back and forth to how this sounds in jazz. Where is our our holy church, where race and class unite as equal persons in the search for beauty, truth, and right.
Where is our holy church, where race and class unite, as equal persons in the search for beauty, truth, and right? Where is our holy writ, where'er a human heart a sacred torch of truth has lit by inspiration taught? Where is our Holy One? A mighty host respond. The people rise in every land to break the captive's bond. Where is our holy land? Within the human soul, wherever free minds truly seek the character, the goal. Where is our paradise? In aspiration's sight, wherein we hope to see arise 10,000 years of right.
Please be seated. Thank you, Bob. You know, that was probably my ministerial colleagues would look at me and really say that was not a good thing to do, because it was disorienting, it was a little uncomfortable, and it sure woke me up. And thank you for being part of the experiment. If those who are collecting the offering this morning would gather the baskets, which has begun already. Thank you. And thank you, Bob, for accompanying us, and Marin.
If your problems won't go away and you're worried night and day, hand it over. Get on your knees and pray. If you're sick, feeling low, got no money, got nowhere to go, hand it over. Get on your knees and pray. Hand it over, hand it over. Give it up, give it over, hand it over. Get on your knees and pray. Ain't no mountain you can climb, no answer you can find. All you need is a hand to hold. It'll heal your body, feed your soul. The road is dark, can't find your way. Let the Spirit light the way. Hand it over. Get on your knees and pray. Ain't no mountain you can climb, no answer you can't find. All you need is a hand to hold. It'll heal your body, feed your soul. If the road is dark, you can't find your way. Let the Spirit light the way. Hand it over. Get on your knees and pray. Hand it over. Hand it over. Give it up. Give it over. Hand it over. Get on your knees and pray. Hand it over. Get on
How appropriate to balance justice work with heart and soul and spirit work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For the benediction, I'm reading from Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote, "If you look deeply into the palm of your hand, you will see your parents and all generations of your ancestors through blood or chosen. All of them are alive in this moment. Each is present in your body. You are the continuation of each of these people. And for this, we have a great deal to be thankful for. May it be so for us all. Blessed be and amen." Would you, now extinguish the chalice? I'm going to extinguish the chalice and ask you to read the words on your order of service. Does that make sense? Thank you. There are refreshments, there are storytellers and stories to be heard, and another song. I'm going to go home and take a nap now.
The falling leaves drift by my window. The autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. Since you went away, the days grow long. Soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you